Welcome back, everybody. In this video, we're going to take a quick break in our corridor design series and take a look at a request that someone has made in order to see how I set up my workspace. Now, I've set this up the way that works for me. It may not necessarily be the way that works for you, but in my experience, these commands are ones I use all the time and allow me to work as fast as I possibly can. Now, before we begin, tool spaces, properties, palettes, if you're in an office, obviously I would have these docked on another monitor. So they would be off this main screen. However, because I'm recording a video, they will stay on the screen. So tool space would be on a secondary monitor. My properties palette would probably be open up on the second monitor as well, as you utilize those commands all the time. And potentially I would throw my ribbon over there as well. I don't use the ribbon all too much, but if you can get rid of this ribbon, you get an extra inch or 2 inches, depending on your monitor, of drawing space. So expanding your drawing window as much as possible actually allows you to see more items and work faster. But because I'm recording videos, like I said, they do stay on this monitor. Now, tool space, leave it open all the time. We're accessing it in the civil world. Every 30 seconds, I seem to be accessing tool space. In the home ribbon, there is a way to turn it on and off. It's the tool space button right here. If you turn it off, alternatively, you could also type show TS to turn it back on. Same goes with the settings tab that comes with your tool space. Now, prospector and settings, if you ever lose these two tabs, which seems to happen quite often and quite randomly, these two buttons right up here in your ribbon turn those specific items off. So there's your prospector, there's your settings tab, here's your survey tab if it ever goes missing, here is the toolbox tab. And then we have a button for tool palettes, which is your subassembly tool palettes. Generally, I don't keep this palette open because if I'm working on corridors, it's going to be for an hour or two. It's not every single day, all day long. So I'll turn my tool palette on and off as needed. And then this last one is your properties palette. So again, you could have them open. Now, there is options to have them, if you drag and drop, you can have them floating and you can place them wherever, like I said, on a secondary monitor. You can anchor them to the left, and then there's also an auto hide option, but I don't like to do that with my workspace because then you have to come over, you have to hover, and if you go a little bit too far, it's going to close. So I don't generally use the auto hide options. I don't have them docked to the left or right or anchored to the left or right. I do allow docking if I do have to drop them so they readjust your drawing window. So that's tool space and the properties palette. Again, have them leave tool space on all the time, properties on or off. It's really up to you. A second set of tools that I use all the time is right below my quick access toolbar. So at the top left here, we have the application menu. Then we have the quick access toolbar, which we can add and remove a few basic commands from by clicking on this drop down arrow. However, before I click on that and show those commands, there is this toolbar at the top of my screen. So this is where I access my survey, my points, surfaces, lines, parcels, grading alignments, profiles, etc. I'll access all the Civil 3D objects, the Civil 3D commands, mainly through the drop-down menus. I don't generally use the ribbon. I don't really like the ribbon, so I'll hide it off and I'll access things other ways. Now, to have this quick access toolbar appear, we have the drop-down menu, and there is a command in this drop-down menu from your quick access toolbar to show menu bar. To show that menu bar. So open that menu bar up, and you instantly have it. You can close the menu bar or hide the menu bar if you don't want it. And there's also a command to show it below the ribbon. So we can drop the quick access toolbar below the ribbon, but the menu bar stays at the top. I will show that above the ribbon. Now, again, the little play pause button here, if we click on that, we see that we can add a save as to our quick access toolbar, and it plunks it in right beside the little arrow. Match properties, batch plot, some of the more common commands that get used are located in this. The next thing that I like to utilize as soon as I install a new version of Civil 3D is the toolbars. So I will have a few commands in toolbars ready to go that I use all the time. Mainly match properties is a good one. I like to see my layer controls with some of the layer freeze buttons that are right down below it, and a properties palette. And then over on the right hand side of my screen, the toolbars, one of the toolbar that is open by default when you install Civil 3D is the transparent commands. And then my draw order toolbar is right below that, and usually I will dock that up here as well. And then this one I close off. Toolbars, they're very easy to add when you have a little bit of gray space to right click on. So if I can right click on here, I can add any of the toolbars, and it's nice and quick and easy. When you first install Civil 3D and open it up, there is not this little gray window up here, and you can't right click on anything. So the easiest way is to type in minus toolbar. So you need the minus sign, and we put the minus sign inside of a command to force it to the ribbon, or not the ribbon, the command line. So it forces it down to the command line. I'll hit enter. Then Civil 3D asks for a toolbar name, or if you want to get have a lot of fun closing toolbars, you can click all. I highly suggest don't click all because there's 50 or 60 of them that will need to be closed. So the first toolbar I usually open is layers. So I'll type in layers and then I will show it, which will pop it up. And this is the layers toolbar right here. And if you hover over the left for what seems like 5 minutes, you will see the name of the toolbar there is layers. This toolbar here that I have open is properties. And hovering over it, you can see that as properties. This toolbar, and if we hover over it while it's docked, we can still see the information, is layers 2. This toolbar is our draw order one. And this toolbar is standard. Now that we have a toolbar docked, so once you open up layers, you can dock it back up there. And we can right click in the gray space where the toolbars reside to see every other toolbar in Civil 3D. If we hover over AutoCAD, we see that we have a large number of toolbars that we can all turn on, we can turn off, and you can turn on the ones you need, turn off the ones you don't need. Civil 3D has a couple toolbars themselves, just the transparent commands, any express tools, if you have vehicle tracking installed, and then you can lock the location of them so you don't accidentally move them. It's really easy to miss the button and drag and drop a toolbar. So feel free to lock them if you want. You don't need to lock them if you don't want to. Another thing that I instantly set up when I come into Civil 3D is my command line. So when we first open Civil 3D on a brand new install, your command line is docked down at the bottom like this. Yes, me docking it the way I do takes away a little bit of the drawing window, but because Civil 3D is more of an advanced product, we are entering multi-level commands when we type things into the command line. So I want to see the past few previous options in my command line at all time. So I tend to dock that. And again, to do that, you can click on the bunch of arrows, pick it up, move it around. You can place it on a second window if you want. And if on my secondary monitor, I probably would have my command line on a secondary window, but I will drag and drop it to the bottom of my screen, and you can adjust it as such. There is a little customize button, and you can look at some of the options here, different input settings, input search options. Take a look at the commands and what's there. The next thing that I'll set up in my user interface, and I end up going into this command all the time. I end up turning things on, turning things off. There's a lot of stuff that I do fiddle around with, but the one thing I utilize all the time is at the bottom of my screen here, we have the coordinate readout. So if I click in the bottom right hand corner under customization, there's 3 lines here. we can see some additional options that we can add to our bottom toolbar. Turning coordinates on and off, we can see that the coordinates at the bottom here turns on and off. I can turn off my model space paper space button. If I don't use the background grid or the background grid snap, I can shut those off and I don't even see them in my toolbar. Dynamic input. I don't use dynamic input myself. I tend to leave this toolbar button turned on though, so I can easily toggle it off if it inadvertently gets turned back on. Ortho mode, polar mode, isometric drafting if you do any of that. Line weight, transparency, selection cycling. So a lot of options down here. Again, play around with them and customize them to suit your needs. The next thing that I will set up is I'll generally go into the options tab. So I'll type OP enter and open up my options. Inside of the options, I'll start under the files tab because there's a few things that I want to automatically happen when I start Civil 3D that I don't want to have to worry about. So I will expand. I'll first go to printer support file path and then plot style table search path. This is the box that's looking for your CTB files. I don't want it to default to my default Autodesk C drive install drive. I will map this to a network drive or wherever I happen to have my CTB files located. So this will get mapped to potential H drive, O drive, N drive, whatever your company uses. And it's as simple as going to browse and navigating to the folder path. The next thing that I will set up is under template settings, default template file location. So I will navigate to the folder where my company's templates are located. So when I click new drawing or I click the new button or I start a blank drawing in Civil 3D, it pops up with that default, probably a server location, and I can just select the template I want to use and continue on. So I don't want to locate my templates where Autodesk installs them. And then if there's a template I use all the time, so file new, clicking the new button up here, whatever template I want to load when I click that new button, I will set up default template file name for Q new. Automatic save file location, it's usually set to your temp folder. If you want to change that to a different folder on your computer or a server, it's just the automatic save location where things get automatically saved when your autosave runs. However, I turn autosave off myself. If your company has any additional tool palettes, block locations, other items that need to be loaded in automatically, these can all generally be modified. Now, Civil 3D 2000, I believe 17 and up, and don't quote me on the version, but 2017 and up, there is a trusted locations folder now. So if you're having trouble loading things into your Civil 3D, that folder path you need to manually input into the trusted locations if things do not tend to work. Moving on, I'll open up my display tab. And if you want to work on a light color theme or a dark color theme, it's completely up to you. I prefer to have everything darker. It's easier to see and visualize stuff. And that's why I tend to make all my backgrounds black, including my paper space background. Now, to do that, you can go under the colors tab. So under the display tab, under colors, and you have a whole bunch of options here, your drawing window colors. So 2D model space, you can make it black. You can change the color of your crosshairs, any grid lines. You can change your, you have to do a different option to change the command line, but you can also modify your command line. Your sheet layout, uniform background, I've got set to black. So when I go into my layout tabs, I'm not greeted with a white background, I'm greeted with a black background. Any of the parallel perspectives, I tend to make everything black. And you can make them whatever color that you really want to. Autodesk has gotten to the point now where it's pre-installing with sort of a Not quite a black background, more of a dark gray background, which is okay. I use that one as well. Block editor, I also tend to make black. Command line, I usually make the command line black, or and then I'll change the text to red. It just helps it be a little bit more visible for people watching videos, or if I'm demoing Civil 3D. Instead of seeing black on gray, it's black on red. And I can make the text red, and you should be able to see that. There might be a couple things in here that you do have to make text red. And then plot preview. I'll usually leave that one white because then it's easier to see the colors. And I'm not in plot preview all that much. So if I apply and close, we see that my background has gone black, my command line has gone black, my command text has gone black. Again, these colors might not be for you. You can set them to whatever you want. If you want a draft on a green background, by all means, you can go ahead and do that. I am going to get rid of that right away though. Another thing I'll set up is my crosshair size. I think default crosshair size for Civil 3D is 10. I like to have it 100 so it fills my entire screen. Again, this is just personal preference. You don't need to do that. And then XREF display fade control. Do you want to see your XREF muted back in color, or do you want it to just be pronounced right away? And it's just a nice little slider that you can easily do. So again, customize those to suit your needs. I will change them on probably a per job basis. Sometimes I want to see the XREF, sometimes I don't really want to see the XREF. Another thing that happens probably quite frequently is you'll lose these layout tabs and you'll only see, I think you might even lose model space. Let's turn that off and find out. Yeah, so model space, your all the tabs go away. Under the options command, the display button, display layout and model tabs. And that will bring them back. One more thing with the layout and model tabs, I don't know if this still happens in every version, but when we're working in model space or even working in paper space, our screen will jump up and down. And these layout tabs will move down, they'll move up, they'll adjust up and down. If you right click on them, there is a dock in line with status bar, and it will physically force them to the bottom. And as you saw, I got a little bit more drawing room by maybe 1/4 of a centimeter. Back into the options tab under the open and save. And usually the last thing that I'll do is turn off my automatic save. I don't want that thing running. I have gotten used to saving every 5 or 10 minutes manually myself. I'll run a save as quite often to make backups of my files. I don't want this automatic save interrupting me in the middle of any detailed, complicated, big commands. For example, when I'm making a corridor, I'll have a corridor window open up for 25-30 minutes while I'm setting up regions, setting up transitions, setting up any specifics for that corridor. And I do not want Civil 3D to automatically save when I click OK to rebuild the corridor, because you're going to try and rebuild the corridor, you're going to try to automatically save, and it could potentially crash your Civil 3D, or automatic save might kick you out of the dialog box. So I tend to turn it off. As soon as I have everything set up in here that I want set up, changing, if you want to change your auto snap marker size, the aperture size of your crosshairs, a lot of different options in here. Again, just play around with them and see what works best for you. So when I'm done all that, I will hit OK, and I will it'll apply all my changes. I will then go back into options. I will go under profiles, and I will export the current one. So the one that right now I have just set up is the two open triangles, C3D_metric. I will export that and I will make a .arg file of my workspace settings. That if I have to reinstall Civil 3D or if something crashes or corrupts in Civil 3D, I can quickly reapply my workspace settings. However, for them to save in Civil 3D and be this way every time you open Civil 3D, you need to close the program and you need to reopen the program. If you don't close and reopen the program and your Civil 3D crashes, it does not save your settings. It doesn't save any of the stuff that we have gone over in the last 20 minutes. So that was just a quick video of how I get my user interface set up, how I access some of the commands, and how I have found in the past that it is the quickest way to work.